It is Monday, guys. Hope everybody had a great weekend. Dad is in surgery as we speak. We actually are filming this a day or two ahead of time. So we'll keep you updated on Wednesday. By the time Wednesday's video rolls around, we'll let you know what's going on with Dad and his knee surgery. In case you guys didn't know, he's getting a knee replacement. But so I want to start on this project. Now this is for our friends that we met back in Tennessee, Roger and Becky. Well, we met them in Atlanta, but they're from Tennessee.
Gotcha.
Roger and Becky with Bayne's Woodworking. And so I want to, he's the one that I have recommended for buying some cedar from. He makes cedar furniture and does all kinds of cool stuff. And this cedar that he uses is just, it's amazing stuff. But one of the issues that we have is in between, when he sends it to me, in between his place and my place, sometimes it ends up coming with splits in it, like this. So we're trying to work on that. I think Roger's going to try and maybe pre-treat them with some sanding sealer or something. I think it's something to do with the climate, because they're absolutely perfect when he ships them out. By the time I open the box in Arizona, some of them tend to have
115 degrees.
Yeah. Some of them tend to have some splits in them. So we're working on that. But the way I kind of got around it, he sent me a bunch of pieces. And this isn't going to be a real big sign, but it's going to be, there's quite a bit of detail on here. So as here, I'm going to make it 14 by 14. So what I did is I took some of these split ones that he sent me and I ripped them down into 3-inch strips. So I moved around the splits and around the knots, and I ripped them down into 3-inch strips. So what I'm going to have here is basically about a 17-inch square when I get the whole thing put together. What I've done is I ripped them into strips, and then I cut them down to around 17 inches long. Then I ran through the joiner so I got really good sharp edges on there. And now I'm just going to laminate that thing together. And then on the next scene, we'll get into taking it off of the clamps and starting the layout process on it. So that's kind of pretty much it right there. That's what we're going to do. So I've got a piece of sacrificial particle board down on my. Now, before I forget, what I did was once I got these in the direction that I wanted them, this will be the face of the sign. I actually marked them 1 through 6, and that lets me set that up so I know exactly where everything is going to lay. And it's pretty good seams on there once I get the clamps on it. So here's what I want to do. I'm going to come back and set the clamps up, and then get the glue process going, because it's going to take a few minutes to set that up. So we'll be right back. Alright guys, so anytime you're doing something like this, I'm probably preaching to the choir, you guys probably know this, but preparation is what I found over the years. My biggest enemy is rushing through this kind of thing.
Oh, you mean patience?
Yeah, patience is what you need. That's the reason I preach it, because I finally learned it after all these decades. So preparation's everything. Go through every possible thing that could come up before you start sticking that glue down. So I've got all my pieces laid down. These Bessie clamps, I really like them. They're not the best. You just buy the clamp set and then get the 1/2 inch or 5/8 pipe to go with them. But I really like them. They work really well. I like the way they stand off of the base really well. The old pony clamps, like this one, sit right down on the table and then don't allow you to get more clamps on the edges. I like the way these stand off really well. I'm going to use this one for my center clamp after I get this all done. So anyway, so we're just going to set all of these up here, get the glue going. So that's my glue edges there. This glue bot, I really like this glue bot system. Works really well. You guys know, if you've watched me do this before, my philosophy is too much glue is way better than not enough. glue is pretty cheap. So, and the glue I'm using, and this one is a little bit narrower, so I got to get it down in there. I'm using Type-On 2 here. Although I think this sign is actually going to be an interior sign. Let's just use the fingers. Definitely want to make sure all those surfaces are covered. All
Yep,
right.
you're on the hands.
That's pretty good. All right. So that's the tricky part. Now, I want to make sure that these are fairly even on the edges here. And I've said this before, guys, I'm not a cabinet maker. I'm not a furniture maker. I just do what I do to get these sign blanks. It always generally works out pretty well for me. All right, so now I've got these cawls. I'm going to put on the edges. These are covered, and obviously I've used them before. They're covered in packing tape all the way around to keep them from. No, I think I got it, Dave. Thank you. To keep the glue from sticking. So that's where I was talking about having the what was I talking about?
Having the board up above.
Oh, the board, yeah, up high enough. I'm gonna come around to this side here. So another thing that I was talking about as far as preparation, I had these clamps pretty much set, making sure that they weren't sticking, because sometimes glue gets on the shaft of these little clamps. So I made sure those were all clear, and the clamps were set at about the right width apart. Again, preparation. I've learned over the years that preparation really makes a huge difference. Oh, like that. See, there I should have had those cawls moved back so that thing swings good enough. Adjust that. That should give me enough flow there. As always, preparation. You want to make sure you've got glue squirting out on all the seams, which we pretty much do. That's a little crooked, but it won't matter as long as those. I think I'm going to add a few clamps for those too, actually. Hang on just a second. I'm playing here. Clamps here and there. Yeah, let's see, that's what I was talking about. So. Got the clamps, you might as well use them. Let's put another one in here. So we'll let this set overnight, then we'll come back in the morning and we'll bust this thing off the clamps and start the layout process. Well, we'll clean off the glue, then we'll start the layout process. But now, cool thing about this is the way I like to just clean this stuff off while the glue is still pretty wet, and water will take that right off. Where's my dry one? Oh, thank you. Now, some guys like to leave that glue on there and then scrape it off after it's all dried. And I've done it many times that way as well. But I tend to like to clean it up. Save myself some cleanup while it's still wet. So that should be about 17 inches square, and my layout is going to be about 14 inches square, so that gives me some room to work with. Clean off the table a little bit. Use this piece again. That is it, boys and girls. So we will be back. Bucket of water. Yes. So I'm just put my my glue roller in my bucket of water, just kind of clean up everything, make sure I don't miss nothing. So that should make a nice little board. Might have to do something with this knot to stabilize it, but we'll check that out after my board's all pretty much laminated up. And it looks like it's pretty even at the ends, so I think we got plenty to work with. All right, you guys, by the way, this is cedar and it's a full 1 inch thick, so we'll get started on the next scene, bust this thing off the clamps, and then get going on the layout. We'll be right back. Okay, it is the next morning. Let's bust this thing off the clamps. You know, one thing I did that I talked about when we were filming is putting my center clamp in here, and I just forgot. I was just doing all the things I was doing there, and I actually forgot to put that middle clamp on. But I think that being as it's just a 17-inch board, I don't think it's that critical. And it appears that all of my glue seams completely filled up, so I don't see any gaps in the glue at all. So I think I got away with it. So let's just get these clamps off. We'll knock these columns. That one just fell off.
Something fluid hit me in the ear.
I did. I'm sorry. Anyway, that's the nice thing about having that packing tape on those colls. They just pop right off.
Look, here it is.
Huh?
Here it is.
Oh, there it is. There's a hunk of glue, probably. All right. All right, that should do it. Set these down. All right, so there's our piece. We got a pretty good, actually pretty good seams. Got a little bit of a step there, but that's nothing big. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this out to the patio and get this thing surfaced down. Then we can move on to the layout. All right, you guys, we're outside on the patio now. So like we've mentioned before, we're going to start doing more of the sawdust generating operations out here on the patio. This is actually working out really well. So what I'm going to do here is I've got my rough belt. I've got my 50 grit in on my scale sander. What I'm going to do is just take these gobs of goo. Gobs of glue is what I meant to say. I'm just going to take these down real quick. I don't want to do the whole thing with that, just where these glue patches are. I just going to take those down with this. So here's some music for your enjoying pleasure. Okay, so now I'm going to set up the other little sander, and this obviously is our face, which I sanded off all my marks, but I know this is our front. So I'm going to set up the other sander. We'll be right back. Yes, it is. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do, guys. I'm going to go ahead and cut this to length, get it squared up. Then I'm going to come back in and do one more step as far as sanding goes, because I'm going to do the inkjet transfer process. I haven't done that for a while, so I'm going to do that on this, and I want this top as smooth as possible. So I'm going to use the little palm sander and get this thing down smooth so we get a really good ink transfer on there. So I'm going to go ahead and go off camera and cut this to size, and then we'll be back and do that little bit of finish sand. Okay, something I forgot to mention, I got a 120 belt on here, so that's what that second sand was I was using. It was a 50 at first and then 120. So what I'm going to do now is use my little palm sander, and I just started using this a month or two ago. We got it actually for Vicky for doing her tables, but I really like it. So I'm going to do a finish sand on that. Oh, by the way, another thing, when I was gluing this thing up, I said this thing was a full 1 inch thick. It's not. It's actually 7/8. A little bit less now that I'm doing some sanding. But anyway, I just wanted to clarify that. So we're just going to finish sand this off, get it nice and smooth, so it'll take that transfer well. Oh, it's nice and smooth. We've got a little bit more here that needs to be sanded, but we'll take care of that after the carving is all done. I don't think that'll be a big deal as far as the transfer goes. So what I'm using on here, guys, I forgot to mention, is 220. So we're going to clean all this up, go back inside, and get our transfer done. All right, you guys, we're back. So what I've done here is we've got our board to the size. It's basically around 17 inches square, not quite. It's a little, about 16 3/4 wide, left to right. Here's our transfer that we've done with the inkjet printer on freezer paper, and it doesn't look quite as pristine as when we first printed it out, because in carrying it in the wind over from the laser room where we stuck all 4 pieces together, it kind of blew apart on us, and we had to, all over us. we were chasing it around the property. But this stuff, once you print this on the shiny side, it is like you just breathe on it and it starts to smear. Hopefully this will still give me a good enough image that I can straighten it out. So we've got all 4 of these pieces taped together. I'm going to flip it over and try to do a transfer. So I've got my registration marks on here. should have brought those marks all the way out to the side. Yeah,
You just moved it.
yes I did. So this gets a little tricky, but I think I'm pretty good there. No, I'm not. Sorry, hold on. There's a mistake I made. I should have brought this line all the way across on the board so I wouldn't have to peek underneath and see where it's at. I think I'm okay there. I'm still on in frame here.
Just making sure I'm not in
Okay. Now what I found when I'm doing when I'm transferring this and rubbing it, what I found is I like our little actual guide, our little router bit depth guide gauge, router bit depth gauge. All right, let's just yeah. So I'll try and make sure. So I'm going to take it one square at a time. Actually, I think I'm going to. Oh, we didn't bring our little clear tape, did
Yeah, it
we? Did we? I'd like to tape these now that it's down. I'd like to tape these together so that they, yeah, so that they stay together. Thank you. I don't have to hold them there. Now the part that concerns me the most is the little word woodworking right in the center, because it ended up being right on the seam, that cross seam. That bothers me a little bit. I'm a little concerned about the transfer of that. But what will happen is if that doesn't come out, then I may just sand that off and use little layout letters for that. But I like the little sharp lasered edge on this depth gauge. I think it gives it a nice sharp edge to push against. Excuse me. Did I miss anything? A lot of straight lines, so it shouldn't, even if I have to kind of touch this up by hand, it should still be okay. All right. Mostly straight lines there. Well, that is, actually there's nothing there. That's all going to be background. So that's detail there. That's detail. Ah.
I don't know, it's pretty good
Considering what we had, that actually is a pretty good transfer. I think I can even use those woodworking letters in there. I'll have to draw some of the bottom of the eye and the end. I'll have to pencil in some of these details. Let's see. What am I missing here? Something here.
Just
but I can draw that in. Again, I can use a straight edge off of my square, and I can straighten up my lines with a pencil and stuff. All in all, based on what we had, I like that transfer. I'm going to be okay with that. So what I'll do is I'll just go and straighten out all these lines, draw my lines with my straight edge, make sure everything is, and again, guys, this is why it's so critical to have a printout. Whenever I'm going to be carving this, I'm going to have that printout right next to me. Actually, I'm really happy with that based on, why?
I'll show you.
Okay. Well, it's too late now. There's nothing I can do about that. Based on what we had, I'm really good with that. So that is it for today, guys. Again, we will get to carving on this thing on Wednesday, and we'll give you an update on Dad, where he's at with his surgery and stuff. So thanks, guys, for all of the well wishes and the prayers. And thanks, I don't think I said it earlier, but thanks to Roger and Becky for the opportunity to make this sign for you guys. I'm really looking forward to carving this. I think it's going to come out pretty cool. So that is it, guys. We'd love for you to subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet. And if you have any questions on this transfer process, by the way, this coming Saturday, we've got the LTS coming up, and we've got some special surprises for you guys. So you're down on the board right now? Oh, okay. So anyway, guys, let me turn it around so you guys can see it not upside down. Actually transferred pretty well. There's some spots in here that it skipped, but I'm going to be able to work with it. I don't see a problem. So, all right, guys, we will see you on Wednesday. Have a good one. Bye-bye.